All right, last match of the day. Going to be going on Battle on the Dunes. Very wide open map, generally favoring sniping. That's why the Fancy is running his sniping loadout more than likely. Got a couple of bits of cover, but other than that, it's pretty wide open. You also got the clouds coming in, but those are usually not quite enough to get brawling going. For the Fancy Team Killers, we have the Pikachu, a Pyramidion, being piloted by Lochnagar. It is a gap mortar forward Pyramidion with a pair of Mercs on the port side. And aboard the Fancy, we have a Merc up top, a pair of Gatlings on the lower decks, and some Artemi on the wings to complement that Merc. And for the Merry Men, once more, we have the It Wasn't Me, a Pyramidion being piloted by Shinkarex, a gap mortar Pyramidion with a flamethrower and mine launcher side. And aboard the Hamlet, we got to do this quick because the It Wasn't Me is going down. We don't even have time. That sniping is just way too much. The Fancy bringing the It Wasn't Me down to almost half permahull already. The Hamlet is a junker being piloted by two left socks. It has an Artemis and Hades on the port side with another Artemis on the front and a Carronade and mine launcher on the starboard. Now the Hamlet is going to be the next target. The Fancy doing a good job of disabling that turning engine on the Hamlet, going to make it difficult to maneuver. The It Wasn't Me moving through a dust cloud to try and close distance, taking quite a bit of component damage there. He's going to lose his port side guns when he does engage. They're going to be able to keep the engines and the forward guns going, but they're going to have to take a second to repair everything else. They want to get over to the ribs, but the dust cloud moves out of the way, and they are exposed. Armor is low. Oh, we take a look at the engineers. We have people jumping down, trying desperately to keep that armor up. They are able to drop behind cover, but not before taking a little bit more chip damage. But the Hamlet is all alone now, eating Merc fire, eating Artemis shots. He is trying to make it to the cover as well. Ooh, heavy engine gets hit, and I believe it is down. Yep, all it has is its turning engines to get it going forward. Merc keeps coming out. Armor not looking great. They're burning kerosene. Armor's down, and Artemi are beginning to land. Now, It Wasn't Me, still hanging behind cover, not trying to give any covering fire to the Hamlet, but the Pikachu is moving in already just to get to cover. Though It Wasn't Me and the Hamlet have desperately lost their hull. It Wasn't Me below half. That is not the way you want to start before you get into your ideal range. Right now, it's Fancy Team Killers. Whoa, baby. The Fancy Team Killers doing a nice job of locking down the Merry Men. The Pikachu coming around the corner. It is a gap mortar Pyramidion, so if it gets into close range, it's going to be able to do quite a bit. Hamlet poking his nose out, but he's paying for it. He's trying to move over to his ally, but he is getting chunked down hard. The armor goes down and brings him down to very little permahull left. That's like 1/10 of max. Now the Fancy turning on the It Wasn't Me. They are popping out one at a time, giving easy targets to the Fancy. Armor's down, going out on the Pikachu. The Hamlet moving in to try and help, but he's getting disabled. He has no guns to help the It Wasn't Me. The armor goes down, and he is forced to burn hydrogen, but that's going to throw him up into the geometry. Not quite. He's going to be okay. Still behind cover, but only barely. Wow. Now that was close. If he had popped out of cover there, the Fancy would have messed him up, because his balloon would have been damaged and it would have taken longer to lower. That's one of the mechanics of the balloon. If the balloon is damaged, not only does it take longer to rise, but it also takes longer to lower. It's a lot slower. The Pikachu in arc, it's just gap mortar though. It's ready. The Hamlet trying to get its guns into arc on the Pikachu, but the Fancy is moving around. The Pikachu is happy to eat a couple of Artemis shots to allow the Fancy to reposition and get some good shots on the It Wasn't Me and the Hamlet. Right now, the Fancy is right on the other side there. What are its arcs looking like? It's going for broke. It's going into the ribs, trying to get that arc. And it's going to get it. The Hamlet is in a lot of trouble right now with the Fancy in arc. No guns on the Hamlet can fire back. The Fancy has taken the Hamlet completely by surprise. Merc misses. Hamlet rising up, burning a bit of hydrogen. Oh, but it's going to run into its ally. It wasn't me now. Losing a lot of that momentum is going to be so easy to hit. It's trying to close distance, but I don't know if it's going to be fast enough. The Fancy is a little bit low. I think this may be a mistake. He's trying to charge under. No, he's going straight for the Hamlet. A big charge from the It Wasn't Me is going to get completely countered by the vertical mobility of the Fancy, and the Hamlet is going to be the first death of the game, picked up by the Fancy. Pikachu moving in on the It Wasn't Me. Fancy once again using that vertical mobility to its advantage. The It Wasn't Me burning hydrogen as well to try to keep up. Fancy bounces. Armor's not looking great, but the Gat runs out and it's out of arc. Pikachu now has a fine arc on him. He's a little bit low though. Mortar's going to have trouble landing, but the double Gat is going to shred that armor on the It Wasn't Me. There it goes. One more Mortar should do it. And that's going to be 2-0. A very convincing lead. Right now, the Fancy Teamkillers are doing a really good job of just controlling these games right now. I feel like the Merry Men are making a couple of missteps, but the Fancy Teamkillers are doing an excellent job of just sort of jumping on those mistakes. Normally, these things would be okay. Like, you know, running to cover, that's usually okay, even against a Mobula, but those shots have really been on target. Fancy moving in, going a little bit forward. I need to disable my Steam sounds. Didn't have too much time to prepare, unfortunately. Pikachu coming in. He's coming around wide. I feel like this is a mistake. I feel like he should be moving in with the Fancy. A little bit closer so they can jump. These clouds are moving out of the way rather quickly. Not going to give them the cover they need anymore. Now, It Wasn't Me and the Hamlet have been spotted. Those Merc shots are traveling a long distance. The Artemis is not quite in range. The Merc can land, but the Artemis cannot. So the Fancy has got to get in a little bit closer. They're going to use the cover of the Dust Storm to get a little closer. No, they're not. It's a little bit behind them. They're just going to use this bit of cover to try and get in closer. The Pikachu, though, is going to get eaten up a little bit by this Dust Storm. Bouncing. They're fine. Not too much damage. Fancy is alone right now, though. And those Hades are finally beginning to come in. So are the Artemis. But the Artemis, a little bit difficult to land at this range. Now the Pikachu, here's what they were trying to do. They want to use the sniping side of the Pikachu in tandem with the sniping of the Fancy. Oof. Mercury gets disabled by a nice Artemis shot from the Hamlet. And who was that? Diameter. Disabling that Merc very nicely. Going to come back up. But It Wasn't Me is closing distance. The Pikachu is not in arc to defend the Fancy, and he might be in trouble. There are only 2 Gats on the Fancy. There's a Gat Mortar on the It Wasn't Me, but the Pikachu turning that port side onto the It Wasn't Me, breaking that armor. Artemis is coming out as well. Fancy rising up. The Fancy wants to get into that close range. He's okay with it with a covering fire of the Pikachu. The Hamlet coming in to try to save his ally, but we're looking at a meat grind. The Pikachu quickly bringing... No! He's not going to bring his port side in. It looked like he was, but no. He is going to turn his forward guns to face, and he is going to chase. Fancy also getting some shots in on the Hamlet. Looking to break that armor. The It Wasn't Me spawns behind the Fancy and the Pikachu. He's going to be in a good position if the Hamlet can just keep himself alive, but the Pikachu coming in with that Gat Mortar, this is going to be tough to fight, especially with a covering fire of the Fancy. There is a spot through the clouds. The Fancy can fire just fine. Mine comes out, goes into the hull. Not what they need to have happen. Armor goes down. Pikachu picks up that kill nice and quick, and the It Wasn't Me that was once rushing in to help its ally keeps rushing in. I think this is going to be the last meat grind. Right now, it was 5-4 in that first game in favor of the fancy Teamkillers, but this time we're looking at a 5-0 victory. Hamlet spawns in, but the armor's down on the It Wasn't Me. Mortar gonna come out. Fancy firing in as well. Armor comes back up just in time, but that double gat is gonna shred it immediately. Fancy Teamkillers winning a very convincing victory. And I believe that is going to be it for today. Fancy Teamkillers and Holy both looking to make names for themselves today. Some really excellent play. Some really excellent, like, just general overall play coming out. Very impressed by the gunners of the Fancy. Doing a really good job of landing those shots even on moving targets. Not easy to do, especially post-nerf Artemis. And really using that ranged Mobula to take control of the game.